the culture of life and the law. We'll explore that and more on today's edition of Life Matters. Brian Johnston is the Western Director of the National Right to Life Committee. He has served in many capacities while advocating for innocent lives, as California Commissioner on Aging, as Chairman of the California Pro-Life Council, on the board of the National Legal Center for the Medically Dependent and Disabled. And now here's our host, Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters. We're your program on the right to life. And on this program, we get into very specific details about what on earth that right to life is. You need to understand it. And what an opportunity today, because we're going to talk about not just Justice Ketanji Jackson, but another Justice Jackson, probably the most important judge you've never heard of. A powerful legal mind. He was the only person that's ever held all three legal posts of the United States of greatest import. He was Solicitor General, he was Attorney General, and he was Justice of the Supreme Court. He would have been Chief Justice, but this was in the 1940s, and it was during the administration of the second Roosevelt. And so political games were played on the court. You might know about that. But if you don't know about the first Justice Jackson, you don't understand the real depth of American history and the real meaning of America's principles. Because that's what we talk about when we talk about the right to life. That's a statement from America's founding documents. It's an assertion that there is a right, a legal right, given by a creator. It's a self-evident truth. That means anybody can see it if they're willing to look. That we actually live in an ordered universe where the laws of nature and of nature's God has revealed these things, and that a just government will ensure the rights that we have been given by our Creator. No other nation on the face of the earth made such an assertion, and yet we have. And by saying it's self-evident, what that means is that if you will take the time to look. So we're going to use this time right now to compare the two Justice Jacksons. You're going to find out some history, and then you're going to look at this contemporary Justice Jackson and see quite a difference in their view of law. Because Justice Robert Jackson, not only did he do all the things I just mentioned, he was appointed and insisted that he be the American prosecutor at the Nuremberg trials. That's because the Nuremberg trials asserted that if you make laws in your nation, they are accountable to a higher law. There's a higher law. And those four nations that judged Nazi Germany were not judging according to the laws of their nation or even according to the laws of Germany. They asserted there is a higher law to which every human being is accountable. This assertion of higher law is absolutely essential if you want to understand what it means to be an American. If you studied America's founders, you'll know, and particularly Jefferson, he expected Americans to work the land, to spend time in nature, and to see how nature really works. And it's very important that you remember that. I believe a sixth grader can understand natural law if they understand basic mathematics, if they understand that we live in an ordered universe. And in fact, all mathematicians that I know, all physicists that I know, they'll admit that they can study and use science and come to conclusions for one reason. You live in an ordered universe. Take a look around. We do not live in a confused universe. Our society is often confused. People you meet are often confused. They'll make assertions and pretend they're facts. That leads to confusion. Natural law, the laws of nature and of nature's God. We're going to talk about the two Justice Jacksons, the difference between the two. Again, you need to know and cherish Robert Jackson, the unsung hero of American legal scholars. Do you know why I think he was such a very good justice? He was the last justice to sit on the Supreme Court who never graduated from law school. That's right. Not only that, he never graduated from college, as you understand college. So all of those fancy polysyllabic words that are used to confuse people with word salads to make assertions, that aren't true, he didn't buy, because he studied and studied deeply on his own, and he was very well educated, but he applied natural law to the law. And his decisions were so eloquent, and even today, his decisions and his dissents are often quoted by the Supreme Court and those who understand the law. That's Justice Robert H. Jackson. Please look him up sometime. He's a real contrast to our new Justice Jackson. I'm not picking on her as a person. I'm picking on her thought, on her legal scholarship. We're going to get real quotes from both Justice Jacksons in this program. We're going to talk about them. I'll give you a setup for both. You remember Justice Jackson's famous quote of not knowing what a woman was, because she's not a biologist. But there's so much more you have to understand in the battle of ideas. You're involved in the battle of ideas. You don't need to be a philosopher to understand ideas. It's true. As I said, I'm thoroughly convinced any sixth grader can see that we live in an ordered universe, and that it also means that there's a moral universe to which we must comply. That you violate those principles in this ordered universe, there is a cost. And that's the problem that many people don't understand. So we'll spend some time. We're going to talk about the laws of nature and of nature's God. We're going to talk about both Justice Jacksons, and we're going to savor what is natural law, what is the law of nature and of nature's God that our founders felt was so important. We'll be right back after this.
You're listening to Life Matters.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, CEO of MyPillow. Retailers, shopping channels, and now even banks have tried to cancel myself and MyPillow. During these times, your support has meant everything to us. So my employees and I want to personally thank each and every one of you by passing the savings directly on to you. We're selling the best products ever for the best prices ever. For example, we have my towels with proprietary technology, which makes them soft and absorbent. Towels that work, what a concept. They're made with USA cotton and come in a variety of awesome colors. My 6-piece towel set is regularly $109.99, now just $39.99 with your promo code.
And that promo code is LIFE. So go to MyPillow, put in the promo code LIFE, and you'll get some wonderful discounts, because Mike Lindell believes in you and in Life Matters.
And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters. We were talking about the two Justices Jackson. And as I told you that Justice Robert H. Jackson was the prosecutor at the Nuremberg war trials, I want to remind you that at the Nuremberg war trials, they didn't just try the Nazis and the generals. They had very specific trials. The Nuremberg medical trials, very specific. They also tried citizens. They tried judges, because many judges passed sentences on Germans who were inferior. Maybe they were disabled. Maybe they had some other liability. Maybe they were the wrong race. You know about that part. But they routinely sentenced their own citizens to death, and they made it legal. But I want to read to you a quote, and this will help you understand more about Justice Jackson and the principles of natural law. Here's a quote from Justice Jackson, one of his dissents, but it's eloquent. "It is not the function of government to keep the citizen from falling into error. It is the function of the citizen to keep the government from falling into error." Close quotes. Justice Jackson was a brilliant legal mind. Now we'll hear from him in his opening statements at the Nuremberg Tribunal.
The chief prosecutor for the United States of America.
The wrongs which we seek to condemn and punish have been so calculated, so malignant and so devastating that civilization cannot tolerate their being ignored, because it cannot survive their being repeated. That four great nations flushed with victory and stung with injury, stay the hand of vengeance and voluntarily submit their captive enemies to the judgment of the law is one of the most significant tributes that power has ever paid to reason.
Very powerful principles. Flushed with victory and stung with injury. The four most powerful nations on earth could have done anything they wanted. And it's very typical after wars that you destroy your enemy utterly. That's how you finish the question of war. But that is not, and it's critically important to see the distinction. What we have is that those with power decided they would step back from that power and instead say the truth. Because it isn't because they won that Nazis were wrong. It isn't because Americans won and the British and the French. It isn't because they won that made Nazis wrong. It's because the Nazis violated a higher law, and now they were going to be held accountable to that higher law. It is, in fact, power's salute to reason, that power should be constrained by reason. And that's what we talk about on this program. Do you know that natural law and the principle of the right to life invites you to use reason, not your emotions or feelings about babies, but that there's reason, and God wants you to understand natural law if you're a Christian, that you can point out in nature why a particular thing is right or wrong. That's what God himself does in Scripture, and the founders knew that. God's revealed himself through his creation so that everyone is without excuse. So it's our job to point out the laws of nature and nature's God, not our own theology even, to point out the principles, and that's what was done at the Nuremberg trials. That's what Robert Jackson determined should be laid out as the principles of law and as the principles to restrain all governments. Let me give you a quick update on the difference between natural or higher law and what's called positivist law. Positivist law does not refer to the positive and negative electrical charges. It's not talking about that. And it's also not talking about positive as a term of good. Well, that's positive and that's negative. It's not even saying that. What positivist law, as opposed to natural law and self-evident truths, are things that are there. You can discern them. You'll need to take a while and think deeply about it, but that's what we're supposed to do when it comes to law and truth. A posited statement is what creates positivistic laws. Well, I posit, what if we try this idea for a law? Hey, I'm going to posit an idea. Let me posit that. So it's an idea that is posed and presented. Let's try this as a law. Let's do that as a law. It's an experiment. And there are places, by the way, where it's good to experiment. All scientists use experimentation. All mathematicians try formulas to explain things, but they're willing to throw out the bad ones. The problem with a lot of positivistic law, that is to say, laws that are proposed, is that they're untested. And yet they were presented and they'll get verbiage. And basically, what they're saying is that I made a statement, it is therefore a fact. An assertion is not a fact. Think through this. And that's exactly what Justice Robert Jackson is saying, is you have to think through what truly is a good law. You can do that, and it's revealed in the laws of nature in an ordered universe. You can come to valid moral conclusions, not just physical conclusions with physics. The order of the universe does make sense. Positivistic law says I can come up with new ideas. And that's really what we see in the next Justice Jackson, Justice Ketanji Jackson. She represents and embodies, through her judicial philosophy, positivistic law. And what positivistic law is, look, I'm going to make this idea, I'm putting it in law, I have the power to enforce it, you must now do what I say. That is the use of raw power, as opposed to that power being under a higher law. So positivistic law is, I have 50% +1, I have the majority, I make the laws, now shut up because I have all the power. That is how some countries are run. That is not how America has been built. America is not built on the fact, well, I'm king, I have authority, you just kiss my ring and do what you're told and everything's fine. That is the raw use of power and an abuse of power. It always leads to an abuse of power. Justice Ketanji, as you listen to her, you're going to hear why this, it sounds pretty, but posited law, what is sometimes called positivism, which is the habit of positing new ideas, how that is merely assertions, but they're unproven, and more importantly, those who posit their ideas don't let go of them. They pretend that an assertion is now a fact, and they move forward. Facts must be tested, and facts must stand in defense of the law. Facts, when it comes to defending life, the facts are on your side. So stick to the facts. The law should protect innocent lives. That's what the right to life is all about. So let's hear a little bit when we come back from the actual interviews with Justice Ketanji and some of the questions that were posed to her. We'll be right back to hear from the second Justice Jackson.
Life Matters continues after this.
Life Matters is sponsored by the California Pro-Life Council. Would you help us during our pledge drive? It's easy. You can just pledge by text. Using your cell phone, text the word GIVE to 916-347-5644. That's 916-347-5644. This is a text-only line, not a voice line. Once you enter the word GIVE, you'll be able to follow the prompts to pledge, and you can also find out a lot about California Pro-Life. So please, don't do this while driving. Please send a text GIVE, that's GIVE, to 916-347-5644. We'll do the rest. Our opponents get vast sums from the government. We can only look to you and folks like you who take a stand for life. Thanks for your help. That's 916-347-5644. Text the word GIVE. Thanks, you're a lifesaver.
And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Those of you who remember the hearings for Justice Ketanji Jackson know that she said some extraordinary things. I want to put them in context so you know, though. And one of the contexts that Senator Blackburn, who is the senator from Tennessee, Senator Blackburn asked some questions having to do with a school board where Justice Ketanji had been serving. She was served on a school board, and it was in Georgetown, the Georgetown Day Schools. And what happens is that Justice Blackburn found in the publications that the Georgetown Day School was proud of its far-left ideology and how it was immersing children in progressive ideology. And she found this startling. So she's going to ask about that first. And then she's going to ask about a ruling from, of all people, Justice Ginsburg, the famous progressive, pro-choice, positivist. But Justice Ginsburg made a ruling in the VMI case where she said that there is a difference between men and women. Pretty astounding. So first she's going to ask about the Georgetown Day School and what on earth was Justice Jackson doing, approving of these really kooky things being taught to children, not just on gender, but things like critical race theory being taught to young children. But then she gets to VMI, and of all things, Justice Ketanji Jackson says, I'm unfamiliar with that decision. What? A powerful decision on gender from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the queen of gender law, and Ketanji Jackson just doesn't know anything about it? Well, that's a little bit odd. I mean, if she's telling the truth, she doesn't have much of a mastery of Supreme Court decisions even. But more to the point, it really is what led to the final question, which you are familiar with, and you're going to hear again now at the end of this interview from the Ketanji Jackson hearing. And you're going to hear now from Senator Blackburn asking some very detailed questions. So, Senator Blackburn, if you please.
I will tell you, too, With Georgetown Day School, I found it astounding that it teaches kindergartners, 5-year-old children, and I've got grandchildren, and they teach them that they can choose their gender. So is this what you were praising when you applauded the, and I'm quoting you, transformative power of Georgetown Day School's progressive education? Do you agree that our schools should teach children that they can choose their gender?
Senator, I'm not remembering exactly what quote you're referencing, but Georgetown Day School is...
It was in a book, and you gave the quote. Okay.
Georgetown Day School is a private school.
Yes.
I'm
asking, do you agree that schools should teach children that they can choose their gender?
Senator, I'm not making comments about what schools can teach.
Let me ask you this then. United States versus Virginia, the Supreme Court struck down VMI's male-only admission policy. Writing for the majority, Justice Ginsburg stated, supposed inherent differences are no longer accepted as a ground for race or national origin classifications. Physical differences between men and women, however, are enduring. The two sexes are not fungible. A community made up exclusively of one sex is different from a community composed of both. Do you agree with Justice Ginsburg that there are physical differences between men and women that are enduring?
Senator, respectfully, I am not familiar with that particular quote or case, so it's hard for me to comment as to whether.
All right, I'd love to get your opinion on that, and you can submit that. Do you interpret Justice Ginsburg's meaning of men and women as male and female?
Again, because I don't know the case, I don't know how I interpret it. I'd need to read the whole thing.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
I can't.
You can't?
Not in this context.
So
I'm not a biologist.
Well, there you have it. I got to tell you, if I was Senator Blackburn, if I was there, I would have quickly said, well, thank God you admit that this is a question of biology. This is a question of biology. It's not a question of ideas you pull out of your head that you posit. Oh, what's a woman? Well, we'll make up something. No, it's a question of biology. And the reason I like that, that's a science. That's something you can demonstrate. You can use objective facts. I will not belabor this, but every listener right now knows that there's some absurd things going on in the name of gender questioning, where nature itself is being assaulted, where common sense is being assaulted, where men are becoming world champions pretending they're women, and where women cannot compete in their own sports because they're not men. Women are not men, and men are not women. And that is a scientifically observable and demonstrable fact. It's demonstrated not just in the reproductive organs, it's demonstrated in every cell of their body. If you have a Y chromosome, you're male. If you have an X chromosome, you're female. There are rare, very rare exceptions to that. But you do not make laws for an entire nation built on anomalies that are biologically incredibly rare. And so that's what they're trying to assert. And they're trying to assert when you make assertions, when you posit something, you are saying your statement is a fact, that making a statement is the same as presenting a fact. In natural law looks at facts. Most importantly, looks carefully at facts, how things really work. It is hard to be a judge. A judge like Justice Robert H. Jackson took on the greatest challenges of history. Again, go back and read his story. I'd love to tell you more about him. He was very, very common sense. And I didn't realize there's statements I have said to people that maybe I had heard it from him, but I think it's very, very important to realize he was a man of common sense. I read philosophy, but don't let that scare you, because Jonathan Swift is one of my heroes. And this is what Jonathan Swift said about philosophy. Philosophy, by the way, means love of wisdom. That is the meaning of philosophy. That's what it means. It's from the Greek. Philo, love. Sophia, wisdom. And Jonathan Swift said this: philosophy is common sense using big words. So don't let big words scare you away from using your common sense. And then if you're involved with a positivist or a progressive person, spend some time thinking about common sense. And then give effort to how you present that common sense. Because the facts, if you're following common sense, I got to tell you, facts are on your side, and facts are terrible things to waste. So here's another quote from Justice Jackson, the good Justice Jackson, and this is long before Miranda. But in the mid-1940s, there was a law case about whether or not you had to answer questions from a policeman, and it was Justice Jackson who laid this out. Listen to this quote. Any lawyer worth his salt will tell the suspect in no uncertain terms to make no statement to the police under any circumstances. Close quote. Well, you might think with a statement like that, well, he just wants to protect us. He's on the side of the bad guys. No, that Fifth Amendment right is an essential element of the law. And Justice Jackson is getting at a deeper principle most people do not understand. I understand it. And I understand it the hard way. Every policeman is a sworn officer of the court. And when you are stopped by a policeman, you need to understand that guy is the court. He is an agent, an officer of the court. He was sworn in. You weren't sworn in. But if the policeman is talking to you, anything you say, he will tell the judge, and it is sworn testimony. It is accepted. He is part of the court system. And if you're pulled over, very common question, I caught you on radar, you were going 85 miles an hour. Be careful what you say. If you start saying, oh, well, yeah, I know, I was distracted, I was in a hurry. Any admission you say, you just made that admission in court. The policeman is an officer, an agent of the court system. And so wherever you see a policeman and you're talking to a policeman, you're in court right then. That's his point. And in America, you're innocent until proven guilty. If you start admitting things without thinking about what you said, you need a lawyer. In other countries, we don't have this privilege of our innocence until proven guilty. Under a lot of the world's laws, they took it from Napoleonic law, and you're guilty. If you're accused of something, you are guilty by accusation, and you got to prove you're not guilty. So thank God that you're innocent till proven guilty in America's courts. But remember that a policeman, they're our friends. I love the blue line. But when you are speaking to a policeman, they are sworn to relay whatever you said to the judge. And you may not say it right, and you can be admitting to things you don't mean to admit to. If you say, oh, I wasn't looking at my speedometer, boom, good. You earned that ticket. You are giving credibility to your prosecutors. And Justice Jackson understood that. He was not a leftist. Justice Jackson believed in America's freedom and the principles that you as an individual need to be legally protected. You need to be on the side of what's right, and the law needs to be on your side as an individual. You have rights, and your rights are not given by the government. They're given by your Creator. So Justice Jackson, very, very wise man. I cannot speak more highly of him. He was flawed, by the way. Many of you know I have heroes. Many of our great heroes throughout American history. I talked about Lincoln. He's just one. I'm a great fan of Theodore Roosevelt. Incredibly brilliant minds, both of those. But both flawed men, but you still need to see their brilliance and understand how they approached being an American and approached truth. Because that's what Americans do. Americans have a nation that's built on the laws of nature. and of nature's God and self-evident truths. And if you don't understand that, you're not a good American. So start applying yourselves to the concept of a higher law and natural law. Again, that's not the same as the laws of natural selection. I've had some people alarmed because they get confused. They don't listen and make distinctions. The laws of nature and of nature's God, higher laws, mean that there's a higher law you have to follow. The law of natural selection, which you've heard about many times in your schools, having to do with evolution and the survival of the fittest, well, those laws say if you have the strength, then you can conquer and take over and do what you want because you have the power. Those are opposite principles of law. So understand the laws of nature and nature's God. Understand natural law and higher law is what America's freedoms are built on, and especially the right to life of the innocent.
Learn more about everything in today's show online at lifematters.life, where you'll find all the resources you need to protect life. Life Matters is a production of the California Pro-Life Council, the state affiliate of National Right to Life. Wherever you are in the nation, you can find out more at National Right to Life. You can find vital pro-life information and also find the access to your state and local Right to Life affiliate. Get informed and get involved.